Hello and welcome back to Pixel Perfect, episode 41. My name is Vilcata, and last week, we started the production efforts to bring aluminum to our factory. Now, of course, as I stated last time, that's going to be a multi-part project. It's going to take us a bit of time to put all that together, but we did make a pretty good bit of progress last time, and we went over a ton of math. We also approached this build from a way that I like to when we are going to make a dedicated location. The strategy we're using is to look at our maximum input and then decide whether or not the final product is as much as we are happy with. And if we are not, then we can look for supplemental sources elsewhere around the map. And in last episode, we came up with a nice round number of 1,000 bauxite intake. And that looked pretty good, just as a good starter base. But I've done some math over the past week, and I've decided that 1,000 isn't enough for me. And honestly, it's not because of the final output. Truly speaking, I do not yet know how much aluminum we're going to produce. I haven't gone that far down the line. When we looked at the spreadsheet, it showed us what our maximum potential outputs were, but we haven't decided on the ratios. No, in fact, there was actually a different aspect in the build that didn't work out in a way that was convenient for the strategy that I'm following. So we are going to start today by bumping our bauxite output from 1,000 to 1,200. Now, we're not going to spend hardly any time doing that. I already have a plan. I just want to show you what we're having to do to accommodate that adjustment so that maybe they still help you in the future, that if you feel like you've worked yourself in a corner, that how easy it can be to actually expand upon an original idea, how flexible these strategies can be. So we're going to start by augmenting the bauxite. So I'll see you guys at the new site. All right, so here we are at the proposed job site for bauxite. Now, you might recognize this area. We are still in the swamp. Our current bauxite is right over there. You can see this is pretty close by, not a big deal. All we really need to do is to create a split off of this flat area. Shouldn't be too hard to do. Where does it start? See, right there is where the ramp ends. So we'll just grab, let's go to Zoop, find the other end of it. We're just gonna one shot because we like to come up the ramp and turn. There we go, and we're down the ramp and turn. I prefer not to turn on ramps. Okay, I never do it. So this is just a quick kind of guide for how easily you can split off of these, and a lot of time I do this prep work, between episodes, so you don't have to see me do it. I'm going to just give you a quick idea of it. I will probably adjust this later. I want to show you just how easy it can be to splinter off of your rail line. Woo! We're on no power. So, as we know, the tightest 90-degree turn is a 3x3 grid. So we're at the end of this one, right? So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So this would start at the earliest right here. I think I want to do that from over here. And when you're splitting off of your rail line, you want to look towards the side that you're going towards and which rail has to make that 90-degree turn on the 3x3. So it's going to be the one that's on the side that you're going. So let's go 1.5 right there. And then our next 1.5 is going to end right here. So you always want to have your destination already drawn, even if it's a temporary piece. It's cleaner to connect to the already straight piece. Come on. I don't care what the length of this is, I just want to make sure it's straight. And just like that, now we know where the 3x3 ends. So over here so it's another straight piece. So 1.5, and see, I'm gonna probably have to adjust this because I want it to come up to the end of the hill nicely. Just for quick simplicity, we'll pretend that there isn't a ramp there. So there's our incoming loop, right? Going up. Remember, on our world, the left side is forward, even though we're not in Europe. So that's our in loop, and we'll have a station down here, right? So it'll go and it'll pass through a station and come back around and come back out. And then we want to do a 4x4 because this is one block farther away, right? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Look, that's already measured. Oh, oh, oh. Wrong. We don't want them to be in the same place. Or they alternate. So there we go. Because now we're coming in on this side, right? And so it's going to match the left side. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this should already match perfectly. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. And then don't forget to reconnect your straight line. There you go. There's your merger. Done. Just like that. Of course, you're going to want to put blocking signals on it, but that's, you know, that's pretty simple to do. We'll throw just some stuff up real quick like. So our incoming, our outgoing, incoming. There we go. Temporary thing right here real quick, just to show you that how it's functioning. I'm going to rework this and make sure all the lines are proper. But this gives you the general idea. Of course, this is flashing because it's not actually going anywhere. But now this line would be functional if our train wasn't in the way. And this would allow the existing traffic to go ahead and pass through without any kind of interruption. And in our case, we're going to just do a temporary line just to get our train off the rails so that the traffic can keep going. And remember, you can push left or right to change the signals while you're driving. And there we go. I'll have to pull it farther forward, but that's, you know, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time doing this. But we're going to go ahead and put a station down here, get miners on these, and this really works the math out nicely. That is a normal node and an impure node. And we're going to just bump our bauxite from 1,000 to 1,200. So let me get this finished, and then we're going to head up to, we're making our silica, because we're going to have to expand the amount of silica we're going to come in. That's going to actually math out even easier than before with our changes. So I will catch you guys up there after this has been built. Now, of course, with the increased bauxite, there's going to be an increased need for silica. But as I mentioned, there is actually a better resolution to this thanks to the new numbers, because our bauxite needs have grown to a point to where overclocking all 6 of our normal nodes to 180 apiece is exactly the amount we need. Now, before we had 3 of them overclocked and 3 of them not overclocked, which meant we weren't delivering the same amount of quartz to each side of this building, whereas the building itself is symmetrical. So that was a problem. That forced us to run, belts to where we had to do smart splits and merges. But now that we can do exactly 180 on all 6, we can do 180 per on this one to just this side and 180 per to that side. And that makes for an exact number. We no longer have to worry about that. Because we no longer have to worry about that, that means this back row right here that previously was required for the split is no longer necessary. And that is also really good for us because we need exactly 8 more machines. That's 2 per floor, 2 per side. So we needed 2 more width of product. of production. And as you can see, we ran out of room. So we needed that side space that normally we have to walk through. So as you can see, I've had to remove the staircases, and we'll be getting rid of that. But that's fine. We have staircases on the other side, and now that this row doesn't have to be part of that merger, that means we can dedicate it to machines. And that will give us exactly our 8 machines that we need, and we'll make things just very smooth. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. All we have to do is just expand this building by 2 blocks, and that's all. Looks like we might run into a little bit of clipping issue here. I have to look into what I can do about that. But yeah, we can do this. We can do this. This will work. So I'm going to go ahead and expand this. You've already seen this building built. It's not going to look like we did anything to it when I'm done, because we'll just have expanded by 2 wall segments, and it'll look just the same. In fact, now it'll actually come up to the same line with the station next to it. So that's excellent. I'm going to go ahead and finish this up so we can actually start moving forward with new things this episode. And let the silica flow. Again, this is temporary, and also you might notice that we have twice as many belts now as we had before. So it was a little less simple than I realized. I got the building finished, and then just something in the back of my head was nagging me that I hadn't checked, which was the math of the output, not just the input. And unfortunately, we teetered over the point to where 2 Mark V belts could no longer carry all the material. So I had to get a little creative with our routing, but we're good now. We're good. We just had to go to 4 belts, which means probably this platform right here and this platform will both become train stations or freight platforms for loading in the future. That's okay. It's not a big deal. It's simple enough. But I had to route these, the top floors out the back instead of out the front, basically separating the bottom floor and the top floor, which originally had merged. But not a big deal, right? We solved it. We just had to go outside the windows because we didn't have room on the inside to do the machines. But this is done. So I'm going to head to the job site and start marking out where do we kind of maybe want our station, or at least, put down a temporary station for now. Somewhere we can park our train and, send it and call it back. And then we'll be able to start laying out the platforms and really working on, how much space are we going to need, how many machines are we going to need for each thing, how are they all going to fit together. So I'm going to drive over there, I'm going to park this on the side rail, follow up after that, so I will catch you there. We've got the station down. This, I think, is going to be a temporary location. There is more I want to do with incorporating the station in the build, but it's going to come down to space. This station is the last consideration in the vision I have for the entire build. So this could become the permanent station, or maybe not. And the reason why it's the last consideration is because fitting a station in somewhere is not subtle. They take a lot of space. Plus, getting the rails in and making them not do funny things. It's just sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Let's see here. Aluminum. That doesn't look right, does it? What is called aluminum temp? And there are trains right over there, but you know what? I can be lazy. Aluminum temp. Let's get rid of that. Save. Turn on self-drive. All right. So this is, again, for now, where the station is going to be. It's a solid location. If we need to keep it here, this would be okay to keep it. So I'm not unhappy about it. It's a quick in and out from the main line. But I want to go up here and show you. Let's turn this off. What we're doing, kind of what our outline is, that this is going to be a really large build. So we need plenty of space. let's fly up there real quick and I will show you what I'm getting at. By the way, right there is our only copper node, but it should be sufficient, though I will likely need to max overclock it. All right, here we are at what is basically the job site. Now, as you can see, I have mapped out kind of what can be laid out without running into terrain. And this is a really generous area. I mean, I figured it was going to be pretty good when I scouted it originally, but there are a lot of, just close calls that just came out just right. So, like for here, you can see we immediately go into a very steep hill. So that line is kind of probably the back line, but you can see it's just perfect. It just barely misses the cliff, misses the hill. It's just absolutely great, and the height of it works out perfectly. You can see we are just right here on the ground, and yet this cliff area over here, it manages to clear it as well. So we're really good. We got really close on this one, so this is perfect. And this is a lot of flat open terrain, though it is absolutely not going to be enough for all the space that we need. I'm gonna run over here real quick, as you can see, it's gonna be a little irregular, and that's actually good. For the design I wanna do, I don't want it to be just a perfect rectangle. So we have a bit of overhang, but we can do a lot more if we need to, if the space requires it. But I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna wrap around the corner and end up bringing this out to here. Something like that. See if we can just, what is our, that's probably gonna clip. Oh, that is close. Well, we might be able to get away with something like that because there wouldn't be a wall here. As you can see, we have room to breathe. And I know this looks like it's a lot of space. And I wouldn't mind wrapping around this thing just to give us, a kind of a land feature as part of it. And there's a lot to the design I'm not yet revealing because I just kind of want to show you as we build. And I'm not going to be too hesitant about cutting down trees at this location. If we can leave them in, we'll leave them in, but we're not going to let them get in our way. So we're looking at this space, right? That's a lot of space. How are we going to really need that much space for this build? Well, I've done most of the math at this point and added in the additional features that were not on the spreadsheet when I first showed it because we needed to get the fundamentals covered. So I want to bring up the spreadsheet one more time real quick and go over some of the enhancements that I have made to it so that the big picture kind of comes together a little bit more clearly. Now what I've done is I've calculated how many refineries we're going to need to make the ingots that we're going to need for the assemblers, right? So both of our assemblers require copper ingots, and I've come up with a pretty good starting point on the amount of assemblers. I think this is a pretty decent spread. I may actually back this down a little bit to get us a bunch more casings because we are likely to use a lot more casings than sheeting. Primarily our sheeting is going to be used in just belting because a lot of the recipes that we're going to come up with later are going to want to use casings. There's even an alternate recipe for the fused modular frame that just uses the ingots themselves. So there might come a point where we come back and we just disconnect some of these machines and start exporting ingots. But for now, let's just go with this as our starting point. This gives us how many copper ingots that would require. So this calculates how many refineries would be required to match that combined number. And then I put in a manual here so that, if I don't want to do an odd number, which I won't, because the ingot refineries have a secondary purpose, which is to eat up water, because remember, we have water as a byproduct. So that's, rounding this up to a full number just goes ahead and eats up more water. And this 255, if we fully overclock that normal node, it's going to give us 300 copper ore. So that one node can cover this. And we could bump this up to use all 300. But that's 300, that's an extra 3 refineries taking up more space. And I'll show you why that doesn't really help us. If we look over here, this is our water cycle, and this is a part of the strategy I didn't talk about before. We have, of course, our refineries that are exporting 120 water apiece, and we have refineries that are requiring 200 apiece. And I mentioned earlier that I didn't like one of the aspects about the numbers, which is what made me go up to 1,200 bauxite. The number I didn't like was the water. I actually needed to eat up more water, not less. And the reason was because we export 120 water per aluminum scrap refinery. And if we want to recycle some of that forward, because I mentioned we don't want to do a closed loop because we can run into problems where all of it stops because we can't export water from water coming in from an external source. What we can do is we can take some of the output, like from here, from the first 4, that will give us at least 400 water, and cycle them back into a couple of the solution refineries. That way we have the exporting water moving into refineries that are not being contributed by another water source. So it becomes part of the water cycle, but it's not a closed loop. And if we only had 5 of these running, before we didn't have a 6th one because we added 200 more bauxite, then we wouldn't be able to support 2 of them because 3 machines exporting water is only 360. That can't support 2 machines, which means we'd have to do 4 machines of water from an external source anyway, and we would only be able to cycle forward into 1 machine. And by adding another machine, that's another 200 water that we're able to soak up. Now, of course, we're producing an extra 120, but it's a greater percentage of our exported water. That works out more in our favor. So that's why we bumped it up. After all that is eaten up, that's going to leave 320 water for us to find a use for. The copper ingots are going to eat up an additional amount. So in this case, or is it? 170, leaving us with another 150 to burn. Now, what we're going to do with that is we're going to just bring in limestone, and we're going to use wet concrete to eat up the rest of it, and probably just throw it into a sink. The reason we're going to do limestone is because it eats up 100 per. And that's our most efficient use of water. So that's the general idea on how this is going to work out. And that's just, again, that's a ton of space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back home and I'm going to put together all the resources that we know that we're going to need. 24 foundries. We have 12 refineries for the first phase and second phase, and then 17 for the copper, another couple for the wet concrete. That's about 31 refineries. And we're going to be safe and say 30 assemblers, even though I don't think we'll be using 30 assemblers. And that, I think, will give us a good baseline. So you can see all the materials on the right. I'm going to go back home. I'm going to load all those up on the train station so that we can start the loop of unloading it here. And then I'm going to get to filling out all this empty space that we have here between all of the platforms. Again, I was just drawing the outline. And we can start by putting a few machines down, get what the width of each kind of area is going to be, and start putting down just some initial parameters to give us an idea of where the different buildings are going to be, because we're not going to do one massive building. This is going to be a complex where the different functions export to each other. Now we have all of our materials on site. Let's see, that's the out, that's the in. That's this, out, there. And this is just, there we go. It wasn't as much as, like, say, that project over there, which really required several trips of the train. I think we got it probably all in one, but it's still more than I could have carried. And this also gives us an opportunity. This is a great strategy that I like to use. I wanted to show you how I not only deliver everything here, but let's fly up here. We can also set up storage on site, like right here is where we're going to be doing our building, and have smart splitters sort everything out. And, I would have used large containers if we had more materials, but honestly, we won't even have a full container full of any given material. And of course, I have the cool little container screen mod, but it doesn't hurt to, you can put your own little screens on there if you want to remind you of what item you have in there. And that way, when we're actually building, we can come back and we find that we're shy on something because we're going to work on one thing at a time, like our refineries or foundries and whatnot. And it's easier to come back and just grab a bunch of whatever it is that you're shy on because it's all sorted out and it's ready to go. We're going to let these get up here and get sorted and kind of start getting a rough idea of how much, like our minimum space is before we can actually start doing the outlines. And we're going to just kind of go through the general flow. Probably should run some more lines closer up. Go. It's going to give us the general flow. These things will be subject to change. But for now, and by the way, I also, when I went home, I included like the water extractors and the packagers. So this is kind of a reveal, right? There was discussion last episode about whether or not to bottle the water, and the general consensus is bottle the water. So that's what we're going to go with. We are going to do a bottled water loop, which I think is going to come out really cool. I've got some ideas that are going to make it really neat, and I can't wait to show you that, but it won't make it into this episode because, in fact, the water is going to be one of the last things that we are going to address in the build. So we're going to look at a general layout of, I don't know if that was to the edge. I want to get the first one to the edge. Let's put one somewhere that we can copy. There we go. Okay. So our first set of refineries, in fact, our first two sets, right, are 6 refineries wide. And I don't have material on me. Give me just a quick second. All right. That should cover me, I think. We only need one set of 6 just to give us, of course, we would run out of space because of a random pole. It had to be there, didn't it? Good. Would you target, please? All right. And we might end up pushing these back. I don't know. I don't know yet. But this is going to give us, the width, the minimum width of 6 refineries. So with that, we know that we would come out to something like this. So that gives us a bit of an outline to be aware of. I'm going to go ahead and draw it forward because we're going to have another set of 6. We're not going to bother putting all 6. We don't need to now. We have the width. And we would say, let's do it like this. We'll call this the front of the building. I'm going to want some space between the buildings. Let's be generous. 3. And put this at, How many do we give? We're give ourselves like a 1.5. Oh, roughly like right here. Again, is just drawing out basic lines. Something like that. Say 3 between next building. So this is going to have solution coming out, or this is going to have scrap coming out, and water. So water is going to, of course, circle back, and then we're going to also bring water forward for making our copper ingots. And I think what we do is we stick with our refineries, and we do copper ingots next. Say roughly right there. Now, for this, we're going to need 17. And if we stick with our 6 wide, which is pretty good, right? 6 times 3 is 18. We are going to be out of range. It's all right. We can be on the ground. This is pretty convenient for us, right? So we stay with the 6 wide for now. It's like we're running out of cable. And we'll just roughly say that. Sounds good to me. And that gives us roughly the end of all of our refineries, minus the extra one for turning water into concrete. So we'll figure out, it doesn't fit in the 18, but we might put that somewhere else. Who knows? It's only going to be a couple of refineries. They could be anywhere. It might be out on their own. Who knows? That's okay. That's just fine. So next we're going to want to look at our foundries. And we're not going to have enough material on us to figure this out. Let me get some more material real quick. Be right back. Pay no attention to my health. I had a small disagreement with something, and then a greater disagreement with gravity. But I've got my materials, I'm back. And all we want to do is literally just get, again, a very rudimentary outline of, if we are to stick within this same width, which is not required, but let's just theorize that we do. How many foundries could we fit comfortably along that line? I should bring that in one so that we can have a wall. I probably should have done before, but it's okay. And I gotta stop being so exact because we just don't care. Okay, there we go. That's what I was trying to get. 2. Oh, silly thing. 3. Get around that tree. 4. I want to line it back up with the original ones. 5. That would just be it right there, right? Nope, 6. Okay. So we could do 6 wide. I guess they are the same width as a refinery. So let's do a little bit of math, which we can do super easy. Now, we don't know how many assemblers we're going to have. Right now, we are looking at roughly 24. That's super easy math. 24 divided by 6 is just 4. Yeah, buddy. No, we'll talk later. So, roughly, of course, normally we'll do like a face-to-face, back-to-back scenario. Just throw something down like that. So I think we're looking pretty good on our spacing. Stay above the hostile. So this is even without going up to second floor. So you can see that we can actually come up with a pretty nice layout. We don't have to go out there. Honestly, I'm a little surprised that this is going to fit so comfortably. So we might not actually, extend all the way out here. We might, take a turn, and because I have some plans for this complex, and I didn't really expect it to come out in just one smooth row. But this will give us a starting point, so we can see what's our width. 8. So if we wanted to, say, go this way instead, so that's 7. Just went out a couple more. So, for example, we could put that over here and not have to go all the way down the end. I'm not really sure. We're gonna really play it out, decide how it is I'm gonna work it. The more I think about it, the more I think I probably will just go straight. That way we don't have too much of this overhanging. As you can see, we're pretty well over the void. And the more that we can keep grounded, the better. We are going to need to fit 7 water extractors in that little pond. I don't even know if that's something that we can fit. We're probably running late on time. I want to fly over there real quick and let's see if we can even get enough of those in there, or whether or not we're going to need to plan for bringing water in from somewhere else. Now that we're here and looking at this pond, I have serious doubts that we're going to fit 7 of these in. And that's not a big deal, right? We have a train running to here, so we can always get stuff from elsewhere. So we're not going to bother lining up with any foundations yet.
This specimen.
Let's just see if we can Tetris 7 in here.
The area.
Okay, that guy's getting in the way now. That's not shallow water. It's just gimpy.
Harvest.
Excuse me, sir. Move. Keep going. There you go. Tough love. So what? That's 5, 6, 7. Okay.
You are so lucky that you found this most valuable artifact.
So we know that we can get our 7 in this little pond. So this is where we will we'll squeeze all of it in, and we'll get all of our water from here. But I think that's gonna be it for this episode. We got to get earnest about our actual building, which we're gonna do in our next episode. But I'm gonna ride this back home, and we'll just wrap this up for today. I'll catch you guys there. All right, home sweet home. Okay, so that's gonna wrap it for today. We've got all of the foundational work that we need done, I believe, for building our aluminum complex, and hopefully we can knock it all out next episode. It's going to be a really cool complex when I'm done with it, and there's a reason why I have spacing between the buildings and wanted to have some spacing to the side, because it's not just going to be the buildings there. I have some other ideas about the location. So I'll reveal all that in the next episode, especially as it actually works out. Hopefully my vision comes together appropriately. So be sure to come back for next episode so you can see the rest of that all come together. I know we didn't do a lot of building on this episode, but it's really about the mechanical side behind it, the planning, and I want to teach as well as entertain. So thank you very much for coming out. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a comment. Be sure to leave a like. Subscribe if you haven't. But I'll catch you guys on the next episode.